What a wonderful, wonderful evening. President Davis, Governor Riley, Ambassador Wilkins, it is really a pleasure to be here. And Senator Graham, thank you. You're very generous with that introduction. Senator Graham and I have known each other for a long time, since he first came to the House. I don't always agree with him, but I admire him. And what I like about him is that when you ask him a question, he's one of those people, it's going to be a rare person in Washington. He actually gives you an answer. He is one of those politicians who remembers what used to be sort of the main thing that politicians had to remember, and those who serve in public service, and that is accountability. People who vote for you and the ones who don't vote for you deserve to know why you decided to do what you did or why you said what you said. Senator Graham, thank you for that. I would just say we need a lot more of it in Washington today. You know, I want to also congratulate those who are being honored tonight, Speaker Lucas and Bill Barnett, the former mayor of Spartanburg. And I've got to tell you, gentlemen, as I look out on this crowd here tonight, this is quite a turnout to honor you. And I have to say, as I was thinking about this, I had no idea there would be this many people here. And if I did, I might have charged for this, but no, I'm teasing. But I tell you what it did do, it reminded me of several years ago. I was down at this little school in Louisiana, deep in the Bayou country, called Louisiana College. And I'd been invited down there, and it was a beautiful spring day, and they had this, I was speaking in the school auditorium. And it was old-fashioned. There was no air conditioning, and every kid, every seat in the place was full. Kids were sitting in the aisle. I looked up in the balcony. Kids were sitting up there. Because there was no air conditioning, they had these big windows, and they were all raised. Kids were sitting in the windowsill. And I looked through the window next to the podium, and there were three boys that climbed up in a tree and were sitting on one of the limbs looking into the auditorium. And I was really touched, and I said, I can't tell you how much this means to me to think that all these young people would come out on this beautiful spring day just to hear me speak. And a kid on the front row said, well, it's mandatory. I mean, really, nobody made these people come tonight. This was not mandatory. So I think it's a tribute to both of you and to this organization to have this wonderful, wonderful turnout like we have tonight. I want to talk a little bit about Washington and the differences I've seen there since I came in 1969 when Lyndon Johnson was leaving and Richard Nixon was just coming in. First reporter I met when I got to Washington was Helen Thomas, the late Helen Thomas. And later we would cover the presidency of President Ford together. And I always remember about Helen one day when Henry Kissinger, who was both the Secretary of State and the National Security Advisor at that time, came in to give a briefing to the White House press corps. And the press secretary was kind of an unctuous guy. He said, now, Secretary Kissinger has 20 minutes. He has not a minute more. He's very busy. He can only speak for 20 minutes. Well, Kissinger, being ever the ham, got up and said, well, you know, I'm not sure, being a former college professor, I can do a lecture in 20 minutes. I usually do it in 40 minutes. Helen on the front row said, well, just start at the end. And even the old professor had to laugh at that. And so I thought I would just take kind of as my text, I would take what Helen said. I'm going to start at the end tonight, and if I were writing a news story, this would be the lead. And that would be this: our political system, our electoral process, the way we elect our public officials today has crashed and burned. It is in the worst shape that I can remember in all the time that I've been in Washington. How did it get that way? Well, this is what I want to talk about. And to talk about that, I have to go all the way back to 1948. I was 11 years old. The big news in Texas, that was the year that Dewey ran against Truman, but the big news in Texas was Lyndon Johnson was running for the United States Senate. And he was touring the state in a helicopter. And we heard that he was coming to the vacant lot where we played baseball out on the northwest side of Fort Worth. And this was big news in our community. And everybody went down there. My dad took me down there. And the reason we all went down there is because we had heard he was coming in a helicopter. And we had never seen a helicopter. So this was really big news. And we were all down there and we were all excited. And then all of a sudden up in the sky, here's this airplane with no wings and making all this noise, and then on this bullhorn, "This is your candidate for the United States Senate, Lyndon B. Johnson. I'll be down there to see you." We didn't know if it was God. We didn't. It scared us to death. We didn't know what it was. Well, the thing landed, all this dust came up. Johnson got out of that helicopter. He walked up to the stand there, and he made this rousing speech, and then at the end of the speech, he took his hat off and threw it out into the crowd, and then got on that helicopter and flew away. My God, I mean, I can't remember a single commercial of the last presidential campaign, or even this midterm thing we just went through. I can remember every minute of that day. For one thing, it was just, really, really entertaining. I told this story to Jake Pickle, who later served in Congress in Johnson's seat after Johnson was elected to the Senate. And Pickle said to me, "Oh, yeah." He said, "That was my job in the campaign." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well," he said, "I was the hat catcher." And I said, "What do you mean, the hat catcher?" He said, "Let me tell you," he said, "Lyndon Johnson was the tightest person on the face of the earth. So he wasn't going to wait and waste a hat on a presidential or a campaign rally." He said, "So my job was to drive wherever that helicopter was going to land, get on the front row, and when he saw me there, then he'd throw that hat to me. I'd take it, run around behind the helicopter, give it to him, and then they'd fly on to the next rally." Well, it's true. You can look it up. I love to tell that story because it provides such a contrast to the politics of that day. Public rally. They don't have many public rallies anymore in politics. It's all done on television. But in that day, every person who had a hand in arranging that appearance, who had a hand in getting the crowd out to see it, all those people had real jobs. They did something else. Politics wasn't their job. It was their passion. Some of them worked at the bank, some of them worked at the supermarket, some of them worked out at the bomber plant on the west side of Fort Worth. They all had real jobs. But here's what I want you to think about. All of the jobs that those people did in 1948, which they did for free, we have outsourced to these political consultants and these strategists and these gurus and all these people that plan these campaigns. All of these people that did this for nothing, we have outsourced what they did to people who charge enormous sums of money. And they have totally changed politics in America. And I think this is the beginning of what has gone wrong. I mean, can you think of any other industry where you got something free and you outsourced it to somebody who charged you to provide the same service, but not as good a service as what you're getting for nothing? I don't think so. Even worse, in the process of all this, we have created a multi-billion-dollar industry that has opened up a new gilded age for the political consultants. But the question I keep asking, and I think that we have to consider, what are the rest of us getting for this? As these campaigns have moved out of the community and onto the television screens, you don't have public rallies anymore, as I said. They have become, the campaigns, so repulsive, so nasty, that they are turning people away from politics rather than drawing them into the process. Have you run into anybody lately? You know, when I was a little boy, my grandmother thought that I was going to be president of the United States when I grew up. You know why? Because every grandmother thought their grandson was